Konnichiwa, everyone. The Chaos Master here, and welcome to part 8 of What If Naruto had Kubikiribocho. Alright, so I admit that my last two uploads weren't anyone's favorites, I could tell, from the lack of views and whatnot. But hey, I guess not every story I read will be a home run. But at least I got this story to keep me going. Anyway, enough dilly-dally. I gotta say, we are finally made it. The tuning exams finals. And boy, oh boy, this is going to be a great arc. Alright. Now, you guys know the drill. Turn on... I always mess that up. Get it in the right order, Chaos. Get it in the right order. Raseng on the subscribe button. Chidori, the notification bell to never miss a video. And dynamic entry to the comment section to leave story suggestions down below. I will try to attempt to, I'm not making any promises on my uploading schedule because I have no idea what that's going to be like. These take time and effort to complete, and I will not rush anything. In the meantime, let's do this. Chapter 8. Clashing Steel, Naruto vs. Tenten. The clear blue sky hanging over the village of Konoha was dotted with colorful smoke as fireworks were set off in celebration. After 4 long, work-filled weeks. Sorry, been a long day for me. After 4 long, work-filled weeks, the day everyone was waiting for had arrived. It was time for the third and final part of the tuning exams. At the gates, copious foreigners were checked in by the guards Izumo and Koetsu. Hundreds of thousands of people, ranging from a peddler looking to sell their goods to daimyo of other countries looking to scout for talent, had turned up eager to take part in the action. But even with all the excitement going on, there were those who had no time to partake in the festivities. Those few were the competitors in the day's main event. Each genin could be found at home, preparing for their upcoming match and hoping that the training they had done over the past month would be enough to earn the title of Chunin. Today's the day, Tenten thought confidently as she strapped a pair of pauldron to her shoulders, finishing her preparations. The young Kunoichi looked herself over. Aside from shoulder guards, the bun-haired girl had fitted a pair of shin guards to her legs, as well as a chainmail shirt that covered her torso around her waist. For added protection, around her waist, were 2 extra guards for her thighs. While not normally one for armor, Tenten knew that going up against Naruto, she couldn't afford to take any chances. So, making sure to keep her selections light but firm, the weapon mistress considered herself ready. One last check to make sure all her scrolls were stored properly, and Tenten was headed out the door with her father. In the clan sector of the village, within the walls of the Hyuga compound, both Hinata and her cousin Neji were preparing for their match as well, against each other. The Hyuga heiress, like her fellow Kunoichi, stood in front of a full-length mirror. But rather than readying herself physically, the younger girl's actions aimed more towards the mental aspect of competition. I can do this, the heiress thought with conviction. Hinata had proven she could take whatever force an opponent could dish out, and now with her increased training from her father, felt more than sure she could send it back twice as hard. It doesn't matter that it's Neji. was Hinata's attempt at convincing her own mind, but berated herself for the mental hiccup. Shaking her head fiercely so that her now shoulder-length hair whipped about, Hinata hardened her gaze at the reflection she saw and exited her room, chin held high. Unlike his cousin, though, I was at the first time, Chaos. Unlike his cousin, though, Neji Hyuga would not be found giving himself a mental prep talk. No. Instead, the Hyuga genius was more interested in letting his thoughts wander to how much he was going to make his cousin suffer. He had seen the spoiled daughter of his uncle Hiyashi as she trained with the men. Her skills in the family taijutsu were nowhere close to his own. Yes, she managed a full 64 pumps, but Neji knew that against his superior speed, it would mean nothing. Because in the end, it won't matter how much she trained. Her predestined limits cannot surpass my own fated genius. This match was over before it even started. Destiny has already seen to that. It was these final thoughts that Neji left the Hyuga compound with. A very similar train of thought made its way through the mind of one Sasuke Uchiha, as he too finished getting ready for the finals. However, unlike the rest, the youngest son of Mikoto Uchiha would not be found at home. The young Avenger stood amidst several shattered boulders deep within a canyon outside of Konoha. Beside him stood Kakashi, the Jonin watching as his student struck the final belt to his new outfit. The copy ninja felt the black spandex would help keep Sasuke more aerodynamic for his fight. No loose sleeves to billow in the wind as he ran. The belts, however, were special. They were currently circulating the boy's chakra in his arm, making sure it flowed much easier for his new attack. As he flexed his bandage-covered hand, Sasuke couldn't help feeling the fires of rage build up inside as he was forced to look on with only half his vision. While not totally destroying the optic organ, Kiba's mud had cost him much of sight in his right eye. The scarred tissue surrounding the socket forming 3 diagonal reminders of the incident. If he ever wanted to have perfect vision again, Sasuke would require an implant. And while that vexed him, the thing that truly set the last Uchiha's temper sky high was the fact that there would be no punishment for Kiba. It burned Sasuke to the core, and he had demanded retribution from the Hokage as well as the council, but was stopped short when they all informed him that, in granting his request, he too would be punished. And why is that? Kiba's Mongol just cost me one of my Sharingan, a clan secret by law. He deserves to be... Sasuke hadn't been able to finish because soon Inuzuka would be forcibly restrained, interrupting him. Mongrel! Shikaku, let me go right now! I need to teach this insolent pup what happens when you insult a pack member of the Inuzuka clan. The normally feral-looking but friendly Jonin had dropped all pretenses of civility and looked ready to rip Sasuke's head off. When her rage-filled eyes noticed the dismissive look the boy was giving her, she practically ordered the Hokage to explain where the Uchiha could stick his demands. Finally thinking he was going to speak to someone with sense, Sasuke did in fact turn his attention on the elderly shinobi who sat before him, only to see that what he was told. I'm sorry to say it, Sasuke, but in regards to your demands, there really is nothing we can do without punishing you as well. When it looked like the boy was going to argue, though, Hiruzen cut across him. In the exams, it is fully understood by all who participate that such things as death or mutilation are a possibility. These exams are set up to demonstrate real-life scenarios, information gathering, vicious long-term assignments, and even deadly combat. And just because mauling your opponent isn't encouraged doesn't mean it never happens. But that still doesn't answer why Kiba's getting away with breaking the law. Actually, Sasuke Uchiha, it does. This came from Inochi Yamanaka, who was seated beside Shikaku Nara, and a now less irate Sum. What you seem to be forgetting, the Yamanaka patriarch continued to explain, is that each and every genin who chooses to take part in the advancement exams are required to fill out an application. This not only allows Okay, that's a weird little thing. There seems to be a word missing. This not only allows for keeping track of all the new faces flooding a host village, but there's also a written agreement, like the one given for the Forest of Death. Ask it if the beginning in question is willing to accept the risks involved with testing. In this case, the loss of your sight or Akamaru's death. At this point, the Hokage took over again. Which means, Sasuke, that by filling out that applicant from your signed form. Let's try that again. Which means, Sasuke, that by filling out that applicant form you signed off, that you understood the risks involved with taking the exams, and were choosing to attempt them anyway. Legally, there truly is nothing to be done other than hand you the compensation fee given out to the families that lose a member in the exam. As he clenched his bandaged fist in anger, Sasuke recalled the end of his meeting with the Konoha Shinobi Council, and how they went on to explain that, if not for the paperwork, any village could seek retribution, or even declare war over what they might perceive as a targeted attack on any of their shinobi. There truly was nothing Sasuke could do. For the first time since his family's massacre, Sasuke found himself unable to exert his inflated title to get what he wanted. And although it wasn't something he made a terrible habit of, the last Uchiha found he didn't like the idea of being told no. Fortunately, though, for the boy's frustrated feelings, his sensei calling him to run through one last spar before heading to the finals gave him something to vent at. From atop the Hokage's monument, sharp blue eyes stared out over the village. A few times they strayed towards the large stadium where the finals would soon be taking place, where Naruto knew he would soon, hopefully, become a Chunin. Thinking back over the month he trained under Anko, the blonde couldn't help smiling under his bandages. After their time in Sea Country, the duo had returned with their new friend Izarabi and reported their mission a success. It was only after Anko handed their Hokage a scroll containing everything she planned for Amachi's lab that the woman's face broke from its stern facade and she ordered her student to meet her outside the Forest of Death the following morning. Chuckling quietly to himself, Naruto recalled how he was expecting her to use the area for their continued training period, only to be surprised when she instead handed him another mission scroll. This one, a C rank, was a cleansing of the forest surrounding Bear Country. The populace had been overrun by bandits. When he asked about his training, Anko informed him that there was no better way to train him in being a Chunin than giving him ample real-world experience. She informed him that the books and practice sessions only got one so far, and that instinct and experience were key to becoming a successful squad leader. Can I please speak today? And so, it was after enrolling his new charge, Izarabi, to the Ninja Academy that student and teacher left to take on their next mission. One that, like the last, would turn out to be more than meets the eye. Because that's where I met you, young Uzumaki thought fondly as his sharp eyes softened, and then his eyes dropped to his lap. Naruto gazed fondly at the small wolf pup cuddling his stomach. However, if one were to look, they would quickly see that this small creature was very different from the average wild dog. For starters, while its fur was a shimmering onyx color, the perfection was streaked with numerous lines of red. Even the contrasted fur itself was different. Instead of simple splashes of color, they formed runic-like syllables in the pup's coat. Again, I am sorry for my speech impediment, but there's nothing I can do about that. So, please bear with me. But that wasn't the only thing separating Naruto's furry friend from an everyday wolf. Its tail, instead of fur, was made up of a pure blue flame. The wolf pup was a member of the... Okay, I'm gonna butcher the living hell out of this. So, give me a chance. The wolf pup was a member of the Hofukami, the Flaming Wolf clan. Her name was Maya, and she was one of the lowest level summons in Naruto's contract. It had been by accident that Naruto found about the Hofukami, as he'd never heard of them. But during his mission with Anko, the young Genin had found little Maya snagged in a hideous hunting trap. The jaw snapped shut around the whimpering pup's hind leg. What made matters worse was the men that surrounded her. Naruto still remembered the rage he felt, seeing some of the very same blades he'd been sent to I need to learn to read slowly. Naruto still remembered the rage he felt, seeing some of the very same bandits he'd been sent to exterminate about to end the life of such an innocent creature. It was without hesitation that the blonde sprung into action, swiftly dispatching the circle of filth, before then turning his attention to the injured pup. He'd barely taken a step before the cavalry arrived, though. Through the trees, a handful of wolves burst forward, bypassing Naruto and surrounding their downed pack member. And while normally this would set anybody on edge, Naruto had nearly let his eyes pop from his skulls when he took a close look at his new company. Each of them were a different color, some the common gray or brown, but others stood out with shockingly orange or even green fur. From there, it had quickly gotten interesting, as Naruto rushed to explain the scene, pointing at the other men laying on the ground to help corroborate his story. I never heard of that word. What the heck does corroborate mean? Give me a second, I want to look this word up because... However, it wasn't until the pup had been freed and tended to that the other wolves fully believed him. That's when the leaf shinobi was given another shock. It had been a test. The wolves explained that they had sensed Naruto's arrival, telling the blonde that the older members of their pack had innate sensory abilities, and that they wished to see if his character was as upstanding as his strength. They themselves were then in for a surprise when Naruto explained that the power they had felt actually belonged to the Kyuubi, and that he himself was still only a genin. But that didn't change their mind one bit, Naruto thought as he let his hand run through Maya's sleek furry coat. I was taken to their elder and offered the chance to sign their contract. Naruto then recalled, after returning to Anko, how the woman had become ecstatic over hearing her little hatchling having procured his own summon, as well as her expressed interest in how they did in the field. In short order, the bandit camp was cleared away an entire day ahead of schedule. After that, Naruto and Anko managed to complete one more mission before, with only a handful of days left. They would spend the rest of their time doing exactly what the blonde had expected from the beginning. With the help of his new summons, Anko ran her charge through the gauntlet that was the Forest of Death. And now, it's time to put all that work to the test. Which can't happen if you're disqualified for being late, Oni-san, came a familiar voice from behind a now-standing blonde. Naruto turned and, with Maya curling up against his shoulder, accepted the hug his Aiza-chan moved to give him. In the month she'd been in the academy, the girl had brightened considerably from the forlorn youth her blonde savior had found her as. And while the genin had been deemed too young to care for Izarabi on his own, Anko had agreed to take the girl in and be her guardian. The two women's relationship was uneasy at best of times, but Izarabi was just glad to be able to visit her big brother when she wanted. Laughing quietly at the younger girl's jibe, Naruto assured Izarabi that he was leaving now and be on time. Good, because you need to hurry up and make Jonin so I don't have to worry about who my sensei will be after I graduate. Naruto just reminded her that she still had a few more years to go before having to worry about that, and then asked her to wish him luck before disappearing in a whirlwind of leaves. The Genin competing in the finals all stood in a single file line. The 6 pairs of eyes that looked back at Genma Shiranui all held a look of fierce determination. Only 2 held something different, arrogance and boredom. Wait, 6. Genma looked again and indeed found that 2 of the finalists were missing. Where are Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha? While my teammate is probably lost somewhere on the road of life, I'm right here. The new but familiar voice caused each person on the stadium grounds to crane their necks. Naruto had been standing behind Genma the entire time. However, the sight that filled their eyes was something none of them expected. What a drag. We could always count on Naruto to make a spectacle of himself, were Shikamaru's thoughts as he took in the blonde's new attire. Gone was the hooded vest. In its place was a black trench coat clipped at the waist, whose torso and sleeves were fitted perfectly to the blonde's frame, while everything below the waist billowed outwards. Like Naruto's old vest, this too had a hood. Its shadows covered all but the young man's still bandaged jaw. Onlookers could also see, with the zipper pulled partway down, that the blonde was bare-chested underneath. Naruto's lower body was clothed in something similar to his coat, form-fitting black pants that disappeared into knee-high pleated boots. His hands were hidden underneath pure black gloves, while the ever-imposing Kubikiribocho rested in its carrier against his back. As he walked over to join his fellow Leaf Shinobi, some of them couldn't help noticing that, despite his lack of height, the blonde's look cut an impressively imposing figure. Seeing that he now at least had both competitors for the opening match, Genma decided that was more than good enough to begin. Alright then, seeing as at least we could start things off properly, let's get this thing started. If you take a second to look around you, you see that the stands are filled with not only villagers from Konoha, but numerous dignitaries and travelers from across the country. They are all here for one purpose, to watch you. They've all traveled thousands of miles to see what talented shinobi you all are. So how about we give them a good show? Eyeing Naruto and Tenten, he explained, like last time, that the 2 of them would be staying put while the other Genin were to ascend into the stands. It was as he was moving into position that Naruto remembered something. Hey wait, where's that guy Genma, the one who proctored the preliminary rounds? Genma told the hooded blonde about how a complication concerning the man's coughing fits kept him from being able to referee the finals. And while Naruto felt bad for the man, he could only accept the news before turning his attention to Tenten. Now, if there are no more questions and you 2 are ready, then let the first match of the Chunin Exams Finals begin! Neither Tenten nor Naruto took their eyes off each other as their proctor leaped out of the way. With the match officially on, both knew that that to do so could spell defeat. Clutching and opening her fists in calm succession, the bun-haired girl smirked at her shorter opponent. I've been training all month for this moment, Naruto. I hope you're ready. From underneath his bandages, she saw him match her smirk with one of his own. That's flattering, but I'm sorry to say that I just don't think it'll be enough. Tenten's smirk morphed into a challenging grin as she swiftly pulled 2 handfuls of kunai from their hoishes on her thighs and answered, Well, we'll just see about that. Making the first move, the brunette Kunoichi launched her small volley of kunai at her opponent. However, she didn't stop there. Once her hands were pulled free, the girl leapt into the air and pulled a scroll from a pouch on her belt. Unsealing the weapon inside, Tenten revealed a sickle and chain. However, unlike most, this one had a link far longer than the customary length. Swinging the weighted end swiftly over her head, the bun-haired brunette launched it when she noticed her opponent simply deflected her hail kunai with a single one of his own. Naruto saw the attack coming, and after knocking away the last opposing kunai, jumped back out of the heavy iron ball's flight path. Blue eyes widened underneath the cowl of their blonde owner's hood, though, when the blonde watched as Tenten let the balls impact into the ground and jerk her into a dive attack. Steel clashed as Naruto's kunai fended off his female opponent's kama. Twisting her body, Tenten hauled herself over her fellow genin, but using her free hand also made sure to wrap her weapons chain around his neck as she landed. It was as she touched the ground, though, that the armor-clad fighter spun on the balls of her feet so as to bring herself crouched in front of Naruto's chest. Jerking the bit of chain wrapped around her hand, Tenten pulled Naruto forward and into a fierce palm strike. While normally she would have thought to use her kama, the bun-haired kunoichi knew that she and Naruto would both do their best to avoid lethal hits. There was no fun if one of them ended up dead, after all. Naruto choked as the hit struck home, but just as quickly smiled before he exploded into a cloud of smoke, marking him as a shadow clone. Tenten just as quickly reeled in her chain before stealing it away, and replacing it with a short sword/shield combo. I can't say I'm too surprised, but I am curious as to when he did the switch, or for that matter, when the clone was even made. Thoughts on her opponent's battle strategy were put on hold, however, as chocolate-brown eyes watched the arena begin to fill with mist. Up in the stands, many spectators ruffled their feathers at the view being cut off. The shinobi among the civilian mass had a different opinion, though. He's breaking out that technique already? Asuma questioned as he and his fellow jonin looked on. Turned his attention to Anko, who stood to the left of Kunai. He asked her thoughts on the boy's decision. Don't you worry about one of my students doing, Asuma. Just worry about what will happen to yours if he has to go up against him. Seeing the smug look on her longtime friend's face raised a questioning eyebrow of her own and wondered, when exactly did he officially become your student, Anko? Isn't he still part of Squad 7? Pupilless brown eyes gleamed with confidence, a strange sight given the question, and to a woman being asked, eagerly replied, That's only until the exams are over. Once these matches are through, the kid's all mine as far as I'm concerned. You have that much confidence in his ability to impress the judges? Might Guy chimed in. He himself had seen the great lengths his students had gone in training for this day, but even still, it'd be hard pressed to consider them tuning worthy. I do, was the only reply Uncle gave as she returned her eyes to the field below. Back down in the field, Tenten had changed her position. Instead of a crouched, ready stance, the girl had shifted so that she now had one knee pressed against the earth, and her shield covering her entire left side. With her sword poised for attack and her senses strained, Tenten couldn't help feel excited. While not an open clash of steel, the bun-haired kunoichi was still enjoying herself. The thrill of the unknown sent her heart racing. However, it was the blood rushing to her ears that almost kept her from hearing the oncoming attack. It was lightning fast, and the girl barely managed to roll out of the way of the shuriken storm, but after doing so, realized her folly. Now Naruto knew her position. The next attack was a heavy one. It smashed against the girl's shield and sent her toppling into the dirt. The follow-up came just as quick. A lightning-fast maneuver that glanced down kunoichi's unprotected left side. Gah! Tenten grunted in pain, thankful that her chainmail shirt had managed to absorb most of the attack. In an act of pure reflex, the girl's arm shot out, sword swinging, attempting to strike a blow against her attacker. No dice. Tenten's blade found nothing but air, and the girl quickly paid for it with another glancing blow, this time to her open back. However, unlike the last attack, which had felt more like a slash of steel, which had felt more like the slash of steel claws, this one was very easily identified as a Spartan kick. The force of the attack had the unbalanced brunette once again finding her face in the dirt. Only this time, instead of landing in a heap, Tenten managed to carry herself with the momentum and rolled into another defensive crouch. In that position, the girl waited. Tenten sucked air into her lungs as she tried to calm her racing heart. Naruto is much more skilled than she'd expected. To create the mist so thick and maintain it so long was a feat no normal genin could ever hope to accomplish. And yet, just as the bun-haired girl allowed her mind to praise her opponent for this amazing skill, the mist began to clear. It happened slowly, as if to act like the reveal of some big mystery. But eventually, Tenten's chocolate brown eyes were filled with the full color view of the arena, one that included an image of Naruto standing barely 10 feet away from her down position. I want to thank you for letting me test out that strategy, Tenten. I thought it up just yesterday, so it's not exactly battlefield ready. But you showed me that, with a little tweaking, it could be effective. The blonde's appreciation was lost on all who heard him, as they hadn't been able to see a thing, with the girl being thanked assumed it had been something to do with his clothes. But neither she nor the spectators below, Jonin level, knew was that the blonde had just tested an attack pattern with his new summons. From her spot on the ground, Tenten grinned to her fellow genin, though. Giving little thought to the fact that she had just been knocked around, and instead chose to revel in the fact that she'd been paired with such a fun opponent. Standing to her feet and settling back into her defensive stance, the armored weapon mistress called to Naruto. I am more than happy to help, Naruto, but what do you say we take some time to give these people a show? The judges do have to see how well we do in an open combat after all. Knowing exactly what she meant, the hooded blonde reached back and tightly gripped the handle of his large sword. Pulling it free, Naruto brought it to rest against the ground with both hands. Letting her smile overtake her face, Tenten tensed them. That is a weird word to say out loud. Tenten tensed the muscles in her face before pulling back, and then launching it and her shield forward. With the release of her defense, Tenten quickly pulled another scroll from her belt, dropping her short sword in the scramble, before summoning forth a vicious-looking spear. Naruto dodged the shield before watching as she made good on her word to give the crowd a show by showing off a multitude of flashy spin moves with her new weapon of choice. Content to follow her advice, as it would give him time to loosen up, the young Uzumaki allowed his opponent the chance to finish before pushing off his right foot and rushing into battle. As expected, Naruto found himself sliding out of the way as Tenten thrust her spear's gold-plated tip at his sternum. Letting his body swing around, the blonde lowered into her crouch before attempting to knock the bun-haired girl's feet out from under her with the flat of his large blade. Tenten caught on quick, though, and easily managed to avoid being taken down. Following through with her opening thrust, the young Kunoichi ran her spearhead into the ground, and then used it to vault into the air before snapping a leg out in a kick that caught the side of Naruto's head. Pleased when her target didn't burst into smoke this time, Tenten finished out another handful of shuriken before launching them as she dropped it to the ground. Rolling with the hit he'd just taken, Naruto ended in a crouch, and hearing the fast-approaching projectiles, moved Kubikiribocho to act as a shield. Peering over the large blade of his sword, Naruto was a little surprised to see his opponent rushing towards him. Thinking quick, Naruto followed the girl's lead and shoved his weapon into the earth when he thought she was close enough. Only this time, the blonde chose to leap over her completely before dead-legging her, and finishing up by slamming her head against his bladed sword. However, when Naruto went on to try follow through with an elbow strike, he was halted by Tenten's quick grab for the incoming smash attack. Using one of her fancy practice maneuvers, Tenten flipped and gripped the tail end of her spear before ramming into Naruto's gut. With the wind knocked out of him now, Tenten's next move was to take hold of her weapon with both hands and snap it up, slamming it into the underside of her blonde opponent's jaw. Spittle flew from Naruto's lips as he just managed to miss biting his own tongue. However, before he could think to try a counterattack, the hooded Genin found himself being slammed full force with his female foe's opponent. Tenten had swung it like a bat, and the resonating strength behind the blow sent the unprepared young blonde skidding back along the arena floor. With Naruto at least a good 5 yards away, Tenten quickly jammed his spear into the ground and reached out to take a hold of Kubikiribocho's handle. A shiver of excitement racked the girl's body as she felt the latent power that seemed to ooze from just the grip alone. Feeling her muscles flex, the girl went and pulled the sword from the earth. Or at least, she tried to. Tenten found that with just a single arm, she barely even able to budge the sword, much less free it from its dirty sheath. So the girl condemned herself to using 2 hands, and with a groan of effort, finally pulled her opponent's weapon free. Holy mother of... This thing's gotta weigh at least 80 pounds! How on earth does he even swing this thing, let alone throw it? At least although she trained under the physical powerful Might Guy, Tenten herself had never been one for muscular strength, making adjustments to heavier weapons to better suit her personal style. Because of that, the girl found herself unable to even lift the head cleaver from its resting place against the ground. Her distraction cost her. A fully packed knuckle sandwich was served to her cheek, and the powerful punch sent Tenten rocketing back, hands ripped from their hood on the large sword's handle, and feet lifting off the ground. Every spectator in the arena watched as Tenten was sent flying through the air. A pair of blue eyes in particular kept themselves trained on their owner's opponent, while a gloved hand reached out and caught the fumbled blade, stopping the famous sword from clattering to the dirt. Not willing to waste an opportunity, Naruto quickly followed after his stunned, bun-haired adversary and swiftly managed to close the gap before passing her. Tensing his body, the blonde hopped into the air and delivered a devastating spin kick. Landing safely, Naruto watched a moment as Tenten rolled across the arena grounds before finally stopping on her side. Propped up by her scraped left arm, the aforementioned Kunoichi spat out the glob of blood that had pooled in her mouth from the harsh sucker punch she received only seconds ago. With strained teeth and a distasteful aftertaste burning her tongue, Tenten pushed herself onto all fours before making it into a kneeling position. But after only a few seconds to catch her breath, the lightly battered young girl felt her eyebrows jump towards her hairline and the shock of how she was covered by a dark shadow. Shooting her eyes up, Tenten barely had time to summon a pair of Kodaichi and put up a cross block. Just like their fight before the first exam, the young Kunoichi found her arms buckle under the intensity of Naruto's strike, as well as the weight of his weapon. Feeling her muscles screaming at her for ordering them to stave off such a heavy load, Tenten grunted harshly as she pushed off her kneeling leg to roll out of Naruto's swinging path. Quickly moving to her feet, the armor-clad girl rushed in to try and keep her opponent on the defensive. Swinging high first with her left hand, Tenten immediately followed suit with a jab from a short blade in her right hand. Again, I am sorry for stuttering so much today. I don't know what is up with me. Yeah, feels like I got a hairball in my throat though. Giving herself a silent pat on the back upon noticing she'd gotten inside the blonde's guard, that pride quickly turned to surprise when she saw the blow being glanced off, as if hitting against shield. Refusing to let the thought distract her though, Tenten spun on her foot and threw out a roundhouse kick. Naruto expertly managed to duck under it, though, and even caught the wrist of the arm that swung around the next in an attempt to follow up with another horizontal Kodachi swipe. Not giving his female opponent the chance to react, the blonde swiftly retaliated with a snap kick that sent Tenten stumbling back. It was here that Naruto engaged his Zanpakuto's reach and shoved the blade forward. Tenten just managed to stumble out the way, the attack glancing off her chainmail shirt, before using her double short swords to block the sweep and slash her hooded opponent attempted next. With her sandal-clad feet sliding through the dirt, her blood once again pumping in her ears, the bun-haired girl decided that it was time to bring out her secret weapon. Secret weapon. Letting Naruto push her away, Tenten loosened her stance so that her feet carried her that much further back. Once she gained enough distance, the weapon mistress discarded her latest summon and replaced it with a standard katana. From his place about 10 yards away, Naruto watched as his opponent settled into a stance he'd never seen before. Blue Eyes took in the way Tenten stretched her leg out in front, bending it lightly at the knee while resting her weight on the back leg whose knee angled to support the added pressure. He watched as the armored girl leveled her katana horizontally beside her chest, elbow bent, while her other hand was stretched out in with its fingertips resting against the tip of the blade. It was a stance the blonde had never seen before, but if the bunny-haired girl's triumphant smirk was anything to go off, then it was one he would need to learn about quickly, or otherwise lose the match. Woo! This is fun. Again, it feels like there's a hairball in my throat, so forgive me if I'm stuttering more than normal. I can't really help it. Back up in the stands, many of the veteran shinobi couldn't help being impressed with the level of skill shown by the two getting below. Unfortunately, though, the talks among the group pointed out one major flaw. Tenten is a great practical skill guy, but it doesn't look like she puts much thought into the plan beyond the moment. The evaluation came from the ever-analytical Kurenai. The ruby-eyed Junin had watched the match from the minute it began, up until its current moment, and had honestly been overall disappointed with her fellow kunoichi. She heard that the girl had a goal of becoming a lethal weapon mistress, and in that regard, Squad 8's instructor relented she was quickly achieving. But Kurenai was disheartened by the fact that brute force seemed to be the only thing Tenten seemed capable of. Shaking her head, the dress-clad genjutsu mistress relented. She's well on her way to becoming a powerful weapon specialist, as she has shown great amplitude for various types already. But I fear that in her quest, she has forgotten there is more to a fight than just swinging a sword. I gotta agree with Kurenai in that one, followed Asuma. Your student hasn't shown off any type of ninjutsu or genjutsu, and any taijutsu has only been tied into combined with her bukijutsu. I'm sorry to say that had Naruto decided to keep his list going or employed any of the ninjutsu he had no doubt under his belt, your student would have fallen by now. Light Guy listened to all this with a stern mask of contemplation on his face. The spandex-clad taijutsu master knew his fellow Jonin at a point, so there was no use arguing with him. But the man did voice his own opinion so as to defend his student. Well, what you say may be true, you forget two things. Both Lee and even Neji employ their either complete or nearly complete taijutsu in battle. Lee has no real chakra potential to speak of, and yet managed to stand against a shinobi as powerful as the Kazekage's son. In regard to Neji, that boy may channel chakra to his fingertips for a deadly assault, but we all know that even without the use of that technique, he's more than a match for almost all the other genin our village has to offer, and even some of our greener tuning. Continuing on, Guy went on to lay out that while Tenten had yet to truly grasp the concept of strategy, she should not be faulted totally for her devotion to Bukijutsu. She very well may not impress the judges this time around, but I believe my student will learn much from her first experience here, and be more than ready to succeed during the next exam. The three other Jonin saw the smile on Guy's face and were surprised to see the confident look that overtook his thoughtful expression. Each of them could honestly say that the man's belief in his student's potential was one of his greatest qualities. Over in their seats, the Genin that fell under the charge of these Jonin were busy having their own conversations. Wow, Shikamaru, did you see that? Can I speak in proper sentences today? Wow, Shikamaru, did you see that punch? Naruto nearly knocked her head off. Choji spattered crumbs onto the floor as he vocalized his wonder with a mouthful of potato chips. His childhood friend and now teammate looked at the two Genin down in the arena and couldn't contain his surprise as he answered back, "No kidding. Man, what a drag. Naruto went from shrimp to superhuman in the blink of an eye. I don't even recognize him anymore. The dope we left back at the academy would never have come up with that as a strategy this Naruto did." The Nara heir's words drew the attention of said blonde's female teammate. Sakura was sitting next to Ino, both dressed in civilian clothes as they were merely spectators that day, and had heard what the ponytailed sloth had muttered. "What do you mean, Shikamaru? What did he do?" "You mean that you didn't notice it?" The youth in question raised a brown surprise. However, before he could answer the pinket's negative head shake with a reply, Shikamaru found himself cut off by the second genius of their age group, Shino. Uzumaki set up a shadow clone outside the stadium and somehow managed to follow it inside without anyone seeing him. He then used the clone to engage Tenten in an effort to test her strength, before then using his hidden misjuicer to allow him the ability to work his way into the battlefield seamlessly. The plan was quite impressive indeed. Both Kunoichi were equally shocked by this revelation. To the two of them, it just didn't seem possible. Naruto using strategy? But the praise didn't stop there. "And then there's his combat skill," Shikamaru continued, taking over from the young Aborame. "That goes a whole year ahead of us, and yet Naruto not only caught up to, but is outclassing her in both skill and speed. It's unreal." For many of the ears that listened in, Shikamaru's assessment was correct. The Naruto Uzumaki everybody had known for so long couldn't be doing any of what the one in the arena was doing. But for one girl in particular, her fellow clan heir was simply stating facts she'd already known. Hinata Hyuga had absolutely no trouble believing that the blonde who had unknowingly held her affection was now skirting around his older opponent so skillfully. For the shy heiress, this was all things she had already seen and knew were possible. The fact he was now getting the chance to show this off just meant now others could see what Hinata already idolized. During the preliminary rounds, and even far back enough to the written exam, Hinata had worried about her blonde crush. He seemed to have become a totally different person after the academy. No longer did he amble around in his orange jumpsuit or loudly announce his presence to those around him. Instead, he had become quieter, more calculated, and had a certain set in his jaw that Hinata couldn't help to notice. While not sure what had caused it at the time, the shy girl understood immediately what had been the result. Naruto Uzumaki had matured. No longer the pouting boy of days past, Hinata looked over the new Naruto with scrutiny as she weighed his changes. And while at first, admittedly, she felt the boy she'd grown fond of had disappeared, Hinata soon realized that all that really happened was he had evolved into a young man. Someone who understood what was asked of him as a shinobi, and was willing to do it, even if it meant killing. That had been a truly frightening as well as eye-opening. experience for the pacifistic young girl. Watching the way her crush easily managed to end that sound shinobi's life had worried her, but what was worse was the look she'd seen in his eyes as he did it. The mesmerizing pools of blue that caused Hinata's heart to race as had become cold, rigid cuts of sapphire. For a few moments after that, the timid Hyuga heiress believed that it was the telltale sign that the Naruto she originally pined for had died, until that single moment after her match. Hinata recalled the way he looked at her as she knelt there on the arena's tile floor. His eyes weren't those of a ruthless killing machine, or something equally as savage, but nor were they the joyful and exuberant pair she had grown to dream of. No, the Yozoro gaze that looked upon Hinata after her match was that of the real Naruto. Excuse me? The one she'd seen glimpses of as she watched him train from afar. They were the eyes of the young man who, behind a goofy smile, refused to give up or dishonor his word. They were the eyes that she now saw in her dreams as she felt her heart fully open to the finally revealed true form of Naruto Uzumaki. Just thinking about the journey her feelings had taken made Hinata try to hide an embarrassed smile. Through her thoughts and evolving feelings, the girl realized that mentally she too had changed. Now the only question was, would Naruto notice? And if so, like the new her? The young heiress didn't get a chance to ponder this thought though, as another younger voice made itself known. I know what you guys mean. Isn't Oni-san the greatest? All eyes turned in the direction of the voice, and each of the surrounding genin were surprised to find a little girl covered in scales sitting just a row above where Sakura, Ino, and Hinata were sitting. However, the shock of the scales was soon replaced, and they all recalled something the new girl had said. Oni-san? Back down below, Naruto had returned his large blade to its place on his back, and then surprised his opponent when he pulled a ninjato from behind his back. His coat, Tenten realized. The billowing waist length hadn't been just for aesthetic appeal. Its true purpose had been to conceal the blonde's secondary weapon. As she watched her hooded opponent settle into the common Kogasumi stance, the female member of Squad 9 had to admit she was impressed to see the blonde understood that, with his limited experience using a massive Zanpakuto, wasn't ideal against a more advanced opponent in a pure clash of steel. Chocolate Brown locked with a Zoro Blue as both fighters steadied their breathing for what they knew was to be the last round of their match. Okay, let's wrap this up. Confident in her newly acquired Gatotsu, Tenten started things off. Digging her sandal-clad foot into the dirt, she used all the strength she had to push off and then seemed to fly at her blonde target. Naruto was pleased at the level of speed his female adversary moved to engage him. She had obviously been holding back the lion's share of her physical abilities. The blonde dared not to blink as he watched the bun-haired girl swiftly closing in on him from underneath his hood. Deciding not to just stand around and wait, though, the young Uzumaki let himself rocket forward to meet his new challenge. Steel clanged as both blades scrapped against each other. With its longer reach, Naruto knew he had to act immediately upon making contact with Tenten's katana, using his own outstretched blade weaving just centimeters underneath the forged steel. Naruto could still feel the katana graze his closed shoulder. Hoping for an opening, the blonde swung his arm out to redirect his opponent's opposing weapon of his own. That's actually that'll be an interesting thing to put in a rap. That's something I shouldn't worry about. From there, Naruto spun himself around the girl in front of him, so that he faced her back, and then ran his ninjato forward in an effort to slice through her unprotected forearm. Tenten wasn't going to let this happen, though, and instead somersaulted forward on the momentum of her opening Gatosu lunge. Once her feet were back on the ground, the bun-haired Kunoichi jumped forward to re-engage her opponent. Ducking under the blade aimed straight at him, Naruto chanced a stab at his fellow Genin's unprotected inner thigh. This attempt was thwarted as Tenten twisted her body to the left, and the blonde's ninjato instead grazed off her right thigh protector. Angling her katana to a slant, the armored Kunoichi pushed her blade down in an effort to pierce into Naruto's shoulder. The move proved to be a mistake when the girl's target surprised her by deflecting the strike with its forearm before taking advantage of her awkward position managed to slice the flesh of her inner left thigh. Naruto had drawn first blood. Instinct kicked in and Tenten's uninjured leg shot out, smashing her right knee into Naruto's nose, sending him rolling backwards. In an attempt to capitalize on his downed-up form, Tenten bit through the hot pain in her leg and rushed after the opponent she just knocked down. Naruto felt his hood fall away as he forced himself to stop, and then threw his arms up, ninjato in hand to deflect the hasty thrust that the brunette in front of him had put together. After that, the blonde felt the heat of battle rush through his veins and dictate his next move. Thrusting out his left hand, Naruto demonstrated an ability almost no other shinobi had been capable of, and that he himself knew only one of: jutsu without hand signs. Wind style, great breakthrough! The force of the C-ranked ninjutsu was amplified by the young Genin's seemingly endless chakra reserves. And with his mind so focused on the battle now, Naruto had no thoughts about regulating his strength. Tenten had no time to even think of avoiding the attack as, like an invisible bull, Naruto's technique slammed against her sternum and blasted her through the air before she was left bouncing against the ground like a skipped stone. With his hood down and now pulled at his shoulders, Naruto was subjected to the bright rays of the early afternoon sun. Squinting, the blonde looked across the field at his now downed opponent, as Tenten's body had finally stopped skipping and was laying in a crumpled heap in the dirt. He, along with every other pair of eyes watching, waited with bated breath to see what happened next. They weren't forced to wait long. Each set of ears in the stadium was trained on the battlefield, and so everyone heard Tenten as she groaned in obvious pain. Tenten moved her arms in an attempt to push herself up, but quickly threw that idea out as her right arm flared in her horrendous pain. It had been broken. At least it matches those ribs he hit, the wary Kunoichi thought in a moment of dry humor. Taking further stock of her condition, the girl noticed that during her tumble, her buns had come undone, and her long brown hair was now raining down like a curtain. Tenten could also see that one of her pauldrons had shattered on impact with the ground too, and the shoulder that had been hidden underneath now sat dripping blood. These, along with what the girl was sure to be a concussion, was just the top of the list. Tenten could also feel the various bruises forming all across her body, as well as many smaller scrapes and cuts that she had sustained during her crash. Knowing there was no way she could continue even if she wanted to, Tenten raised her unbroken hand and flashed a signal for surrender. Just as in the preliminary rounds, Naruto Uzumaki walked away with the first victory of the day. And so concludes Part 8 of What If Naruto Had Kubikiribocho. I gotta say, I really enjoyed this. I'm actually one of the few people who can relate to Tenten. In a way, I have like an unhealthy obsession with different weapons. I don't collect them or anything. I just imagine that I can wield different kinds of weapons. It's kind of funny. like, of all the shinobi I could relate to the most, it's the most normal one there. And no, I will not count Lee as normal because have you seen his eyebrows? Have you seen him? Lee is not normal. Anyway, I want to thank you all for sticking with me with this freaking hour. And leave a comment down below if you want to. Not gonna force you, can't force you, and will never be able to force you. In the meantime, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you never miss a video, and if you kindly leave a like down below. I'll see you all next time. Chaos Control!